Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our opening music sequence. I'm Councilman Rory Lantzman, and welcome to our fourth town hall meeting, virtual town hall meeting for the 24th Council District. Today's town hall is focused on education issues during the coronavirus. As you know, I am very proud to represent the 24th Council District, which includes all or part of the neighborhoods of Kew Gardens Hills, Pominock, Electchester, Fresh Meadows, Hillcrest, Jamaica Estates, Briarwood, Parkway Village, Jamaica Hills, and Jamaica. And especially important for this call, I represent schools in District 25, 26, 28, and 29. These are public schools 201, 200, 154, 165. In there, Principal Davis Neely. 219, 164, 131, 255, 173, 92, 182, 86, and 117. For middle schools, I have IS 250, 216, and 217. How you doing there, Mr. Laurie? For high schools, we have John Bound, Townsend Harris, Young Women's Leadership, Thomas Edison, Jamaica Gateway to Science, Hillcrest High School, my alma mater, North Queens Community, Hillside Arts and Letters Academy, Queens Satellite, and Robert F. Kennedy. As you know, or at least I hope you know, we are doing the very best we can to continue serving our constituents and keep everyone up to date. Our office is open for business, virtually speaking. You can call us at 718-217-4969. You can email us at rlantzman@council.nyc.gov. You can tweet at us at Rory Lantzman, or you can send us a message via Facebook. And for those of you who are joining us by Zoom, you can see on the screen right now, and we'll leave it up for a moment or so, the contact information for our office. I hope all of you are receiving our daily COVID-19 emails and seeing them on Facebook. If you are not and you wish to sign up, you can call us at 718-217-4969. Email us at rlantzman@council.nyc.gov. Tweet at us at Rory Lantzman, or send us a message via Facebook. My COVID-19 website on my City Council webpage has an archive of previous virtual town halls and other useful COVID-19 information. And the address is council.nyc.gov/Rory-Lantzman/COVID-19. If you just Google Rory Lantzman, you'll get there in a hurry. We are committed to holding regular town halls throughout the duration of the COVID-19 crisis. Our next town hall, a conversation on senior citizens issues, excuse me, is this Friday, April 24th at noon. Now, with all that coughing, this is an appropriate moment for me to let everyone know what the smoothie of the day is. Today's smoothie, which my beautiful wife prepares for me so I can get to our town halls, is, Sam, you want to get the smoothie of the day slide up there? I mean, the people are wondering. They tune in mostly, I got to be honest, it's not for me. They're tuning in mostly for the smoothie. Today's smoothie, that's not it. Wait for it. The anticipation is killing. There it is. Today's smoothie is apple, banana, orange, blueberry, grapes, and almond milk, made by my beautiful wife right there. Delicious. So after the mayor closed schools, the Department of Education mobilized a massive remote learning effort in just about a week's time. And our teachers, our principals, and our support staff deserve our gratitude for adjusting to these unprecedented times. I attended New York City public schools. Behind me there is my alma mater, PS 164. I'm not really standing in front of PS 164. It's an illusion. But I feel a deep connection to our schools, of course, and I know that so many of you who are viewing, and so many of my constituents, after the issue of our health, which is most urgent, the primary issue in our mind is our schools and how our kids are able to get an education through this crisis. But thankfully, our principals and teachers are working hard to keep the school year going remotely, and technology makes it possible to engage our students in even the most trying of circumstances. Before we get started, I feel that we really have to mention and recognize the 63 Department of Education employees who have passed away as a result of the coronavirus, including all levels of Department of Education. And it really is a tremendous loss for our educational system and for our community. Joining me is, we have 4 distinguished panelists. I'm really excited about the group that we have, who are going to bring us up to speed from their different perspectives and be able to take and answer our questions. We have Mabel Munez Sadoui. I'm sure I messed that up. Did I get that right? I guess she's shaking her head. I'm gonna say I did that okay. And she is the executive superintendent of Queens North, which includes districts 24, 25, 26, and 30. For my council district, that's 25 and 26. We have Dr. Andre Spencer, who is the executive superintendent of Queens South, including districts 27, 28, and 29. For our purposes, district 28 and 29 is in my council district. Tiffany Davis, who is the principal of PS 165, the Edith Bertram School, waving to everybody there, and Robert Laurie, who is a teacher at IS 250, the RFK Middle School, and is also a UFT delegate. We're going to start with people introducing themselves and telling us what's going on and what they're seeing from their perspective, and anything right off the bat that they would like parents and students and people to know. And then we'll go to questions and answers, which is the most fun part of our town hall. Now, to ask a question, if you are participating by Zoom, there is a Q&A window in your Zoom control panel. I think it's at the bottom. Hit that, type in your question, and Sam, our moderator, will get you in the queue, and hopefully we will get everybody's question asked today. If you are dialing in, not everybody is participating via Zoom, but if you are dialing in, you can email your questions to CD24SAM, as in Council District 24, CD24SAM@gmail.com, or you can text them to 347-498-4826, 347-498-4826. And don't worry, I will repeat that information throughout the course of our town hall, so you can write it down and get your question in. So with that, why don't we start with Mabel Munez Sadoui, the executive superintendent of Queens North. Mabel, thank you for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us your role in the system, and tell us what you tell us and what you think we should know.
Okay. Councilmember Latchman, thank you. Thank you for having us this afternoon and for being passionate and committed to the public schools. We really appreciate it. As you shared, my name is Mabel Munez Sadoui. I've been the executive superintendent for Queens North for about 90 days now. And prior to that, I was the superintendent of District 28, which you have schools in District 28 as well. And I'm looking forward to talking to the community and answering some questions that they have. But I'm representing the Chancellor Carranza and First Deputy Chancellor Watson Harris. And it is really a pleasure to be here. I have 167 schools, 25 of which are high schools. We have 8 rec centers. We have 42 food hub sites. And we have an average of attendance. Well, we're going to call it engagement because it's really not attendance, is 88% as a Queens North. So I wanted to give you some background overview around my school. So thank you again.
Thank you. Next, we would love to hear from Dr. Spencer, who's the Executive Superintendent for Queens South, which for my council district means districts 28 and 29. Dr. Spencer.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. It's definitely a pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you to our Councilman Landsman. We actually had an opportunity before this whole pandemic situation started to be over at 358 supporting the work that they're doing there and actually seeing some of the great things that are happening there in District 28. I, like Executive Superintendent Sardui, on behalf of our Chancellor and our First Deputy Chancellor, would like to bring greetings for them to represent the work that's happening here in Queens. So it's definitely exciting. For us in Queens South, in District 27, 28, and 29, we have 151 schools in Queens South, 111,000 students that we miss being in the school building with. So we're doing a lot of remote learning work with our learners, which is pretty exciting. We have 7 rec sites around Queens South, and we have 34 grab and go sites for our families to actually pick up food and go. And I'm sure there will be some questions that will give you a little more insight as to the work that's happening with regards to remote learning and some of our social emotional work, the work we're doing for our graduating seniors, as well as our students who are going to continue with us next year. So definitely looking forward to the conversation.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Principal of PS 165, Tiffany Davis Neely. Tiffany, welcome, and tell us what you're up to.
So good afternoon, friends. I am the principal of PS 165. I am the proud principal of PS 165. This is my 4th year as a principal at PS 165. I represent District 25, and under the leadership of Danielle Domingo, PS 165, we're bustling with teaching and learning and fun and activities. And while we may not be in the brick and mortar building, we still have a robust, rigorous instruction happening each and every day for each and every kiddo. In addition, not only do we have a strong curriculum, we're having a lot of work and putting a lot of time into social emotional learning for not just our kids, but our parents and the staff. So we're really busy at 165. And I have to tell you, it's not just 165. All of the schools under the leadership of Danielle Domingo, we're all working really hard to address the multifaceted needs of our community. And I just want to say thank you for all of your support over the years in supporting 165. You know we love to see you in our building. So again, 165, in addition to all of the schools in District 25, we're working hard, we're giving it our all, and we're being responsive to the needs of our community. In addition, PS 165 is a feeding site, so we are very lucky to see many of our community members. On average, we feed around 500 families a day. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to answering any of your questions. And you should be standing in front of 165. I thought we were your favorites. Just joking.
You now expose me for how I tell every principal of every school that they're my favorite.
I know.
They're like children. I love them all equally. So next, we're going to hear from Robert Laurie, who is a teacher at RFK Middle School. And I should mention RFK Middle School, I guess, is the closest thing I have to an existing alma mater, because I graduated from Parsons Junior High School, 168, long time ago. And RFK is one of the schools that now occupies that building. So, Robert, you're up.
Thank you. I'm a special ed social studies teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I just want to say thank you for having me here. I hope as a teacher, someone who's on the front lines right now, I could give you guys some background information. Obviously, a lot of it will be anecdotal from my school, but I have a feeling most schools are going through the same things that we are as teachers and we are as schools. Just to piggyback off Principal Davis Neely, the teachers, admin, the union, and councilmen, the support we're getting is what's keeping this going. And I just wanted to say thank you. And I hope I can answer any questions today.
Terrific. Thanks very much. Well, let's get to those questions. We've got a lot of people attending, so this is exciting. Sam, who's the first question? Is that Miss Hall?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay. We just turned your sound on. So Ms. Hall, welcome. Why don't you tell us what neighborhood you live in and then pose your question.
Yes, hi. I'm a teacher at a Far Rockaway pre-K for all site, in which I'm at a daycare. So my issue and question with this whole thing is Zoom we begun with, as it was one of the most easiest platforms to use. For myself, who is not the best tech savvy, and for parents I have with students who are English language learners, as well as we have a high population of students from other countries. So Zoom was just so easy to connect to and I guess download and just use for everyone. We ended up having to take it off and then start something else. We tried other ones. We tried WhatsApp and Google Hangouts. Our school actually doesn't have a DOE account, in which I understand that some DOE teachers can use Google Suite, and it's a part of your DOE account. But for some of the small schools who don't have that kind of access or money for such, we're kind of out in the cold, because then Google Hangouts can be limited to only 10 kids per session. It's really, it gets more complicated. But
all right, so that's a good question. I've heard it a lot. So maybe the two administrators, you could update us on what is the technology that is being used. Very briefly, what was the issue with Zoom? I read about it, and then I'd love to hear from the principal and the teacher about how what platform you're using and what you're seeing and any recommendations for parents. So either Dr. Spencer or Ms. Sardoui. Sure, Dr. Spencer, please go ahead.
Yes, I can start us off. The challenge that we were having with Zoom was the security issues. Whenever students were in classrooms, and even in some of the meetings that we were having, we were finding that there were individuals that were able to hack into the system and put up some not good stuff that we did not want exposed to our young people or to any of our staff. So that was the rationale for moving away from Zoom. The DOE has done a lot of work around Microsoft Teams, as well as Google Classroom, as well as Google Meets, and really working with those platforms to bring and ensure that there was more security around the measures of being able to monitor, one, who is actually in the meeting, who has access to the meeting. If by chance some information was to pop up, we could immediately identify where that information is coming from and resolve the issue or resolve the challenge. And with regards to the question of gaining access to those platforms, I would say to the public that if you're having challenges with any of those platforms, I can provide my email address so that you can reach out to myself. We have people within our borough citywide offices who can provide direct support to be able to access those platforms so that you then are able to utilize it. So Dewey, I don't know if you had something that you wanted to contribute to that or add to that, but that's what I had.
Trying to unmute myself. Okay, so I want to give out a phone number in case a parent or a teacher needs some support with technology, and that's 935-5100, option 5, and there are technicians that will walk you through some of the challenges with technology. And you said pre-K in Far Rockaway. As Dr. Spencer said, in our borough centers, we have some support champions, computer champions, we call them, and they can provide different platforms and provide the professional learning for you individually or a group. So feel free to email Dr. Spencer or I, and my email is msarduy@schools.nyc.gov. And the phone number where you can get assistance is, again, 935-5100, and that's option number 5.
Yes.
The phone number, did you area code?
It's
Can you give us
718.
718, give it one more time, please.
935-5100 and select option 5.
Got it. So let's keep talking about the technology because it's a really big issue. Principal Davis Neely, what technology do you are your teachers using? How are you finding it? What are some of the challenges? Maybe some advice you can give to parents as it relates to making the most use of that technology?
Well, I won't say it's a challenge. What I will say is it's all new learning for many people. So PS 165, for the most part, many of our teachers are using the Google platform, Google Classroom, and all of the features of Google. And again, it's just new learning. So as the weeks, I think we're in week 5 of remote learning, and it's getting better with each week. We're learning more applications. Teachers are becoming more sophisticated. Kiddos are becoming more sophisticated, and parents are becoming more sophisticated. In addition to the Google platform, we're also using other tools such as Dojo. These are tools that we've been using before remote learning. So when I think about technology, it's okay. The more you practice, the better it will become for everyone. And honestly, the kiddos are, they move with ease with this, because this is, we happen to be a school that has a lot of technology, and we were using Google Classroom prior to remote learning. So it was an easy transition for most children. So one thing that many schools are doing, they're offering training for parents, just to walk them through the platform so that they understand how to use it, all of the tools. And I do know we moved away from another platform, but really that was just for safety. So again, as we move through remote learning, it will become easier for all stakeholders. Sometimes there's some glitches, we work through the glitches, but for the most part, I can say at PS 165, we're doing a really good job of utilizing this technology, as this is not new to us. Now we're just using it full time. But I would say to parents, please reach out to your principals, to the teachers, and they will walk you through any of the hard parts. And that's just with anything. If you're struggling with any of the content, the teachers and the administrators will walk you through. If you're struggling with any of the tech support, almost every school has someone that's really tech savvy that can help you through, but no one should feel that they don't have someone that they can go to. The same way you could walk into a building and go into, I call it a welcome center, or call the main office and get some help, you can have that same help. In many of our schools, our parent coordinators are calling everyone, our lunchtime teachers, the paraprofessionals, it's all hands on deck and offering supports for kiddos and families. So I would say be patient, know that someone will support you, and use your strong advocacy skills if you feel like you're not getting what you want or what you need.
Mr. Laurie, what are you seeing in terms of where the boots are on the ground, so to speak, the direct interaction between teachers and students, and definitely if you can give us the perspective of what this remote learning technology means for a special ed teacher.
Right. Well, the story of every school is going to be based on where you were in technology when this happened. So my school, we were very lucky. The social studies department is the tech team. So we had the entire 7th and 8th grade on Google Classroom. But I got to see what it would be like to have a grade that wasn't on Google Classroom, because our 6th grade was not. That was a huge challenge for our school. I shout out to my 6th grade teachers. I was put in charge of 6th grade, getting 6th grade on the internet, and they did so much work. The teachers just all pitched in, got the entire 6th grade on. So I kind of got to see what it's like from both perspectives. So if you were already connected, had kids on Google Classroom, the transition was much smoother. If you had students who weren't, it took an extra week or two to really make sure you got everyone on. My entire school is on now. Kids are in attendance, turning in work, and we're really, just to bounce off Principal Davis again, now that we're in week 5, I think we are past that hump of making sure every kid is being engaged with. As far as the day-to-day, attendance is tough. Kids sometimes even attend school and don't do work while they're there. So the level of work definitely varies. I think one thing that I personally noticed is kids are actually being asked to do more now, which sounds crazy, but they're really being asked to do more work than they ever were before. Anecdotally, just talking with them, a lot of them do feel overwhelmed. So I think as teachers, as administrators, we need to really find that sweet spot. We're never going to make everyone happy, but we want to, and we're going to keep working to do that. But some parents might feel that there's too much. Some parents might feel like there's not enough. But at the end of the day, I think we got to step away from quantity, because it scares the kids to see that much work on their plate, and really focus on quality, good work, still rigorous, still learning, but not so much that they're afraid to open up their computer in the morning.
I just wanted to add one more thing, if I may. For District 25, which is most of your schools, I want to thank Superintendent Domingo. She has trained the Parents President's Council on technology. She has trained the parent coordinators in technology. And she has a point person for all her leaders to troubleshoot any problems. So I'm sure if parents are struggling with a platform, we can hold their hand one-on-one or a small group to support them. Because I know for parents and for adults, it's harder, as Principal Neely said, than the youngsters. The youngsters pick it up very quickly. For us as adults, we fear, but once you have someone on the other side helping you, it'll be fine.
Rory, may I just add one more thing?
Yes, please.
So, and again, I don't want to repeat anything, but I want the community to know that there are many levels of support. So there are levels of support from the school level. You can also go, district support. And, I want parents to know that their voices are heard, their voices are valued, and they can go to schools, and they can definitely go to the district levels just to make sure that all of their questions are answered and in a timely manner.
Excellent. Okay, thank you all very much for that. Next, we're going to hear from, I think it's Edwin Medina, has a very interesting question. Edwin, you're up.
Hi, I was just wondering if you knew when the middle school announcements would be made, because I'm not sure if my nephew has been told where he's going next year.
Middle school placements. Anyone want to take a crack at that?
He should have gotten it last week or early this week. I'm going to give you a website that you can find out, and through your My Schools account, you can find out what school your nephew was matched to. Again, your nephew's principal will have this information. The parent coordinator will have that information, the guidance counselor. So there's a couple of people that you can reach out to, but I want to give you, and is this for middle school or for a high school placement, Edwin?
He's finishing up 5th grade, so it would be a middle school placement.
A middle school placement. So that would be the general enrollment center, not the high school. Give me one moment and I'll find that email for you. If anybody wants to add something else for Edwin.
I think you covered it with all of the information you provided.
Okay. I want to give you the enrollment site for Queens email. I'm going to find it for you. My apologies.
That's okay. We have flipping through our notes music,
Okay.
but we don't.
Here we go. Queens, capital QUEENS FWC at schools.nyc.gov. And that's the enrollment center in Queens. That's their website. But please feel free, if you want a person, connect with the principal, the parent coordinator, the guidance counselor. These 3 people should know what placement your nephew, was selected. Thank you for your question.
Good. Thank you very much. I see we have an interesting question from Mallory Tompkins having to do with grading. So let's queue up Mallory Tompkins so she can ask her question. Mallory, you there?
Hi, everyone. Thanks.
Hi there.
Rory, good to see you. My question is, I was on with Senator Ramos last week with Chancellor Carranza, and he was mentioning that there would be a new guidance document released in relation to grading for students and how that's all going to work in the last semester of school.
Dr. Spencer, you seem to have unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I thought she was going to ask more to her question, but you are correct. A grading policy will be forthcoming shortly. I know Executive Superintendent Sardui and myself have spoken quite a bit about the grading policy and grading guidance that are coming out, but more specifically, how will that land within schools and within buildings and even within particular districts. So additional information will be forthcoming with regards to the grading policy for the DOE.
But I also want to add to what Dr. Spencer mentioned. I don't want parents to feel the pressure if you have not gotten a device or if you're sharing a device. Your assignments, we're going to be flexible and we're going to be patient. And so assignments, if it's incomplete, we're going to give opportunities for children to complete their assignments, and attendance is not like the normal attendance. We are looking for engagement. So that can be a phone call from a teacher. It could be being on a chat with a teacher, submitting your assignments, different ways of capturing engagement that the administrators and the teachers have. And so children will not be penalized if you're not engaged a particular day. send in your assignments, do your work, and we will work with the family and the school in order for your child to continue to make progress.
Thanks. Mr. Laurie, maybe you could tell us about how teachers are viewing grading in this environment, and what is, like, how do you balance? I remember as a student, you know, it was important for me to get good grades. I didn't always do that. When I didn't get a good grade, I was unhappy about it. I mean, how do you, kids naturally, you know, want, even though they say they don't, my experience is they want feedback. They want to see that the work that they're doing is valued. How do teachers do that when you're not giving quizzes all the time or tests all the time, and ultimately we don't even know how people are going to get a grade?
Right. Well, as you alluded to earlier, I am also a special education teacher. As a special education teacher, you know that you have to list your expectations and give extremely specific directions. We need to keep doing that online, and we need to continue to hold the kids to a certain level. We want to continue to put forth our expectations and have them meet them. And after they do that, and after they do their work, we now have to assess it from this new standpoint of, were they, like, some of them are sharing devices, some of them don't always have internet. And the only way we're really going to give the kids a fair grade is if we continue to communicate. We need constant communication. We need to give back feedback, and we need the kids to also give back feedback. If there's parents on here and your kids are on Google Classroom, your teachers are giving feedback on their work, go back to that work and see what feedback they gave, because it's going to, one, that's the best way to learn, is to go back and make those changes. And two, see where your student is at. Don't just look at the number grade, because in a lot of cases, I do want to give a good grade because this kid clearly put effort in it. So maybe I do give them an 80 or 90, but why did they get an 80 or 90? They need to go on and find out what exactly they did wrong or what they need to change to get to a higher grade. So not only teachers giving feedback and it just going out into the ether is not going to do anything. We really need, on the other end, parents and students going on and looking at that feedback and applying it for the next one, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn.
Mm-hmm. So if I may add, students who have special needs have an individual plan, and that individual plan, both in the classroom and now remotely, we provide scaffolds for the students who have individual plans. So the expectation is the standard work and providing the background knowledge that the children need in order to meet that standard. And so remotely, teachers are doing a great job in providing the supports as well as giving the standard setting work for the children.
Okay, we have an anonymous question, which I will read. It is, what is the ideal frequency for remote learning for each grade from early childhood to high school? How much is enough? How much is too much, especially for pre-K? How many hours a day are students doing remote learning? What's your comfort level that it's the right amount? How are kids responding at different ages? Why don't we start with our teacher, Mr. Laurie, and then we'll ask our principal and get the big picture from the superintendent.
Right. Well, for every grade, for every subject, for every school, this answer will be different. But rest assured, teachers, we learn fast. We're good teachers, but we're even better learners. So we're gonna know right away, are we giving too much work? Are we giving too little? Is this work not rigorous enough? We're getting great feedback from our administration. They're being told what they should be looking for, and then we're reporting back to them like, how is this working? What should we do? Is it enough? I think right now, teachers are probably erring on the side of giving a little bit more than might be what is necessary. but they're giving quality work too. So I think we need to make sure we're in communication with the students, and you know which students you should be asking, and they'll tell you whether or not they feel like there's too much on their plate, because we don't need to stress them out. We need to teach them. So I think finding that perfect spot, that happy medium, is really what we've been doing in the last 5 weeks. I feel very comfortable at this point. I know a lot of my fellow teachers feel very comfortable with the amount of work we're doing. And also, just one other thing, as a special ed teacher, I always have to throw that out there. Our students thrive with consistency. So if you want to try a new program, awesome. If it works, amazing. But it's a good idea to like get them into a routine also, right? So my routine is pretty simple in it, but it's the same every week. I'm just trading out content and skills that we're working on, but it's consistent. And I think consistency is what our students really need right now.
Principal Davis Neely.
Okay, so I'll jump in. I can't give you a specific number of hours, but what we do say is if children, it's about the needs and the wants of the particular age and stage of students. But what we do say is we don't want students sitting at a computer for 6.5 hours. We want them still engaging in movement and the arts and enjoying their lives. So again, you have to really look at the needs of the particular students that you're working with. Let's say 3rd grade. All 3rd graders are not the same. So again, you want to be responsive, and then you want to be able to adjust the teaching and learning based on the needs of your particular class. So remote learning, just like in a brick and mortar building, it's about noticing, addressing, revising, noticing, addressing, and revising, and then making plans and co-authoring those plans with kiddos and their families. But again, I can't give you a particular number of hours, but do know that teachers make themselves available. They make themselves available during the school hours and after school. I've seen teachers. I actually visit the classrooms every day, and I see teachers in their classrooms at night responding to parents. I see them in the evening responding to parents, and I can tell you that many teachers are going above and beyond. Teachers, administrators, support staff, parent coordinators, school aides, they're going above and beyond to give kiddos what they need. So it's not necessarily the amount of hours you should be sitting in front of a computer, but it's about the amount of supports that you're getting so that each child can be successful. So be responsive so that you can be supportive so that we can increase student achievement.
Thank you. Our superintendents, can you give us sort of the big picture view?
Sure. So definitely in agreement that with what the other two panelists made mention around remote learning, but I think it's really critical and important to understand that remote learning doesn't necessarily deal with the computer or technology all the time. Remote learning means that I'm not necessarily in the building, but I'm still engaging in the learning process. So there could be students that could be engaged with the teacher via telephone. Students could have watched a webinar or logged in to pull up whatever their assignment is and then step away from the computer and complete whatever that particular assignment is. So I think it's looking at it from the standpoint of a variety and what that variety actually entails as far as how are students going to tackle the concepts that they're learning or the concepts that they're engaged in. I would also say that it's depending upon the actual student and parents really paying attention to the student's readiness and the student's ability to actually engage with the technology and what the parent is deeming as what's most appropriate for X number of minutes or hours or however long it's deemed necessary to be in front of or to engage with the technology. So I think that's where the critical component comes into play. And the last piece that I'll add to that I think is important for parents and families to really pay attention to what the student may be using the technology to engage with. Because again, every assignment that the student is receiving, it doesn't necessarily require them to engage with the technology for every given moment of that particular assignment completion. But I think it would be important for parents to begin to think about that aspect as well.
Superintendent Sardoui?
Yes, and I agree with all the panelists in front of me. I just wanted to add, if you are a parent, please communicate with the teachers and the administrators. We want your feedback also. Teachers may be planning and assigning and not really realizing that it's taking 3 hours as opposed to the teacher thinking it may take half hour. And so that feedback is important. The feedback from the students, the feedback from the parents, so that the teachers can make adjustments as we're going. So there's no prescribed time for a 4-year-old versus a 17-year-old. It's every individual child and the teacher getting to know her group.
And to also add to that, I would say, make it fun. Like we tried to do when we are in brick and mortar school, and making learning fun, but make the learning aspect of it fun and not appear to be just the completion of a task. And there are multiple ways in which that can occur with and without the technology, which I think would be important.
In terms of making the classroom and learning fun, would you recommend that teachers introduce the smoothie of the day concept? Would that be helpful?
I would recommend that everybody uses the concept of smoothie of the day.
Absolutely. There's a lot of learning from that. Starting with the 4-year-olds, what kind of different fruits?
I can tell you my my school aides, my lunchtime teachers, when they're making phone calls, they're calling asking about lunch. What are you eating today for lunch? You know, do you have fruits on your plate? Do you have vegetables? So again, now I guess when I get off of this webinar, I'm going to ask, you know, can you make some smoothies? So thank you for that, Rory.
So segueing to what I think is a really good and related question, and I do want to talk a little bit later about all the other things that schools are providing to kids and their families beyond just the 3 R's, the 4 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, remotely. I just came up with that, by the way. We have a question from Lisa about the social emotional aspect of this remote learning. Lisa, are you there? I see Lisa on my screen, but there you go. Lisa, you there? I see that she's been unmuted. One last try. Lisa, can you hear us? Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Lisa's question, which is, what is social emotional learning in a remote setting? Who wants to take a stab at that?
I can lead us off with that, with some of the work that we're doing in Queen South. So take mindfulness, for example, and some of the mindfulness activities that are out there for how we can begin to engage in just getting settled into yourself as a learner, but then even as an entire family. So it could be a situation where, similar to this, you have someone that's demonstrating a particular action, rather it's a breathing action or rather it's a movement action, and then I'm replicating that. And it's just putting me into a space of being more mindful and conscious of what it is that I'm doing and how it is that I'm dealing with this particular circumstance that we're all living, but also circumstances that I may be dealing with, but everyone else may not be dealing with, which I think is critical in that aspect. We have also done a lot of work and training around some yoga performances. So it's typically yoga as the exercise yoga, but it's more so yoga and getting into the consciousness of your being. So being in the house, being on the computer, not necessarily engaging in your daily activities as we have typically done, can sometimes just put us into a space there where this social distancing is not really very social for us like we would like for things to be social. But these are some types of activities that we could say as students, let's engage with this with your entire class. So your teacher could be leading it, the counselor could be leading it, the social worker could be leading it, but it gives you an opportunity to have a little bit of the virtual socialization, as well as getting your consciousness together as a learner and as an individual, which we have seen it being helpful for many of our teachers, as well as our students and parents in Queens South.
Tiffany, I see you unmuted yourself.
I don't want to repeat anything that Dr. Spencer has said, but I will say we're doing many of those activities that you mentioned at PS 165 and many schools across District 25. And one thing I know, social emotional learning is not just happening now during remote school. This is something that we've been immersed in, I can say at my school, for the last few years. And so it just looks a little bit different remotely. So when my kiddos come into their remote classrooms, they're checking in and they're using a mood meter and they're having conversations about what they're thinking and how they're feeling. And if they're feeling, if they're anxious or upset, teachers are stopping and helping them process and making meaning of that and slowing down before moving into the academics. So this is just something that in my particular building and many schools across the district, we've just been doing. And so I will find in the beginning of a lesson, they're doing some SC, social emotional learning. Midway through a lesson, they're doing social emotional learning, and at the end of lessons. So this is something that's not new to remote learning. It just has a different look, but it is paramount that this is something that's happening each and every day. Because again, the world is different. The world feels different. We're processing we're getting a lot of information on a daily basis, and social emotional learning is a way to help people, not just kids, all stakeholders make sense of the world so that they can self-regulate and self-monitor so that they can be their best and give their best inside of the classroom. So this is not new, especially for District 25 and many of the districts. This is not new. It's just been somewhat reimagined. I'll say that. And we use the tool, the mood meter, quite often. And then actually parents can Google it and the mood meter will come up and it will give you different colors on the mood meter with specific words. And you can use that as a tool, as an entry point into a conversation. So why are you feeling, in the green or in the yellow or in the blue? And then use it as a tool to then have conversations about. So social emotional learning is really just understanding, how am I doing in a bigger, in the context of a bigger situation, and what can I do for myself and for my team so that I can function at a high level. And to me, that's what social emotional learning has been in many of our districts for many, many, many years. And we're doing this not just for our students, but for our staff and the larger community. So I do know many schools are continuing training for parents so that we're talking the same language in school and at home. So this is not new. It's just been reimagined somewhat during remote learning.
Superintendent Sardoui?
Thank you. So I agree with the panelists, and I'm just going to add, Mark Brackett from Yale talks about the mood meter. And in Queens North, as Principal Neely shared, we have done a lot of work around social emotional intelligence. Now more than ever, we have to check in with the adults and the children and the families of how are you feeling, right? He claimed, Mark Brackett says, name it so that you can tame it, which means name the feeling. I'm anxious, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm afraid. It's important to name it so that we can address it. And just last week, I attended one of his webinars, and he said, parents, you should be social emotional scientists, like inquiry, and at the right time and at the right place. So not when you're having dinner or not when, as the parent, you're overwhelmed because you just came from work, at a time where is appropriate, have conversations with your children about how are they feeling, and validate that it's okay to have that feeling. During this epidemic, there are a lot of emotions going on, and it's important to talk about those emotions and then secure the children by letting them know that this will pass and that we're going to get through this together and stronger.
You know, I think your responses go a long way towards answering this next question, but I want to give this grandmother an opportunity to ask it directly and maybe flesh out some of the things that have just been said. Patricia Searight has a really good question. Mrs. Searight, are you there?
Yes, hi, how are you?
We're good. Thank you for joining us. Please ask your question.
Yes, my grandson, he's 5, and when we do the dual or the Zoom with the family and even with his teacher, he doesn't want to talk. He just turns his face and goes away. And, you know, I feel that he's hurting inside. I don't know, you know, what to tell my daughter to do about this. And normally he's always talking, laughing, and playing.
Mr. Laurie, maybe do you think you could try to give Ms. Searight some advice, some suggestions?
Sure, absolutely. Superintendent Sardui really hit the nail on the head. These students, we spend so much time with them in the classroom. We do so much social, emotional learning with them in the classroom, and that connection has been severed. It can't ever be the same, but we need to continue to try. We need to find the students that are having trouble expressing how they feel. Our city went through 9/11, and that was a horrible, horrible experience. But then within 2 days, kids were back at school with the people that care about them, you know, with their friends. This is very different. As far as, I mean, I work with middle schoolers, but a kid is a kid. As far as a 5-year-old, they can't possibly be understanding what's going on. I would maybe sit down with them and explain that, you know, their teachers want to hear from them. If maybe, I know my girlfriend's a 3rd grade teacher. She does Zooms with her classroom, and then at the end she has 1 or 2 kids stay, and she'll work with certain things. Sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's social emotional. Seeing all those faces on the screen or hearing all those voices, maybe it's intimidating. Maybe if he has a moment to have a one-on-one with the teacher, I guarantee your teacher would absolutely do that with him. But just like we've been saying this whole time, it's about communication. Let that teacher know that you're concerned, and that teacher, I promise you, is gonna do everything they can to try and get your grandson to open up.
And I would also add
Okay,
to
thank
that
you.
to do a touchback to the school itself, connecting with the principal and the teacher, because the principal and the teacher can connect you with the counselor or social worker at the school to begin to give some supports for the 5-year-old to be able to help them through whatever this particular challenge is. They'll know which questions to ask, even if it's something that perhaps the child can draw and they can interpret the meaning behind the picture, which would be beneficial. But I think those types of situations will require some work with the clinician to be able to support in that effort.
Superintendent Sardui, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so Mom, you're not alone out there. Grandma, you're not alone out there. The school will support you. Please call the school. We have psychologists, social workers, and guidance counselors. And they'll meet with grandma, the child, and mom, or by himself, and try to talk through like Dr. Spencer said, draw some of those feelings. It's important that children are listened to and heard. So you're not alone. It's great that you identified it. Please call your school so that way we can work through together.
Thank you. So can I just ask, I don't know if this was said, guidance counselors, are they still able to do their thing in some way? And how to, is there any programmatic or systematic way that they're reaching out to students?
They are. Guidance
Go ahead.
counselors reach out to individual students that teachers have shared. This child is not engaging, or I'm concerned about this child, just like in the normal regular school year, but now it's remotely. If we know of a family that is going through a crisis, the guidance counselor is involved. I have a director of student support services, and so does Dr. Spencer, and she's going through a series of workshops for guidance counselors, for support staff, attendance teachers, what questions to ask, how to ask them, what supports are available within Queens. We have a lot of community-based organizations, and so absolutely, counselors are just as involved as the regular classroom teacher. You're muted.
Yep, thank you very much. It's got to happen at least twice in every town hall. We have a more practical question, a very practical question rather, from, I think it is Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, welcome. You're up.
Thank you.
What's your question?
My question is,
Oh, Ms. Jones, wait, start again. You got muted. You keep going in and out of mute.
I got a phone call just when I was talking. Am I there?
A choice. You are. The phone call or the town hall?
Oh, I'm sorry. So anyway, I was asking about a parent that pays for the prom and the graduation in like October. How are they handling all those refunds?
Yes, so I can chime in on that. Right now, what we're actually doing is having some conversation for how we're going to handle the process of reimbursements and refunds. That information is coming from our budget offices back to schools and principals, so that principals will be able to communicate to parents and families. But we're just making sure that the process that gets put in place is a process that allows for us to ensure that the monies that were collected is the monies that are being sent back, because we also have to keep in mind that many schools have already paid for venues and other services that are out there. So we have to now work with those venues to be able to retrieve those dollars back, since that particular event or service is not going to happen. That's something that the DOE is working on right now, but more information should be coming forth about that shortly.
Excellent. Now, we've got a bunch of questions and we have about another 15 minutes or so. A lot of people are asking their questions anonymously. This is, having gone to many PTA meetings and town halls in schools, people were never that shy in person, but apparently a lot of people have anonymous questions. So in addition to, so I'm going to ask it for them. In addition to the summer youth employment program, which, as you know, has unfortunately been canceled, this, I assume a parent, maybe a student, what about credit or experience that students can do or earn so that they have something to write on their applications to college or their resumes? That's an ambitious student or parent. I like that. Does the Department of Education, do schools Are you trying to come up with something for young people to do in the summer, in light of the fact that there's no summer youth employment program, and whatever other things kids might have had in terms of summer plans are probably all kaput?
So I can give a little insight around this because it's going to look different than how it has looked in the past with regards to summer youth employment programs. Executive Superintendent Sardui and myself have been working very closely with our Access Executive Superintendent, who really spearheads a lot of the work that's happening with our youth for summer employment. And what he's putting in place right now to see if it's possible, some opportunities for some of the remote experiences that we could have for students to engage in these type of opportunities. How that will look, we haven't quite figured it all out at this particular moment, but I know that it will look differently. It will look different than what it has looked in the past. So I don't necessarily have a specific, this is what it will be answer, but I do have an answer to say this is something that we have definitely been having conversations around and working through how we can ensure that students could potentially have some opportunity for some summer experiences. But I don't want to necessarily discount past experiences and previous experiences, because we've had quite a bit of our youth who have been working up through this pandemic situation and have been gaining experiences throughout. So those would be opportunities that they can put that information into their applications, as far as if they're applying for colleges or they're applying to go into a particular career area. So they have opportunities to do that, but looking for this summer, we're working through how that can manifest itself.
Okay. Here's a very practical question. Are you open to waiting until the summer to do some kind of graduation, to do some graduation ceremonies for 8th graders or trips that they had been planning to do that got canceled, or some getting together if the stay-at-home order is lifted in the city? I mean, I don't want to seem overly optimistic or in any way think that we've put all this behind us, but it does look like we have flattened the curve somewhat successfully, that we have plateaued, and believe it or not, at some point we're gonna come out of this. It's certainly not going to be in time for any more schooling in this school year. I don't know what September will be, but let's say July 1st, all the social distancing starts to recede or be reduced in a significant way. Is it possible to hold off on graduation ceremonies? Principal Tiffany Davis, Neely, I love to attend all the graduation ceremonies in my district, and how meaningful it is for students. Is there any thought being given to doing those after the social distancing ends? Any picking up some of the trips that kids missed? Anything like that?
So I'm going to share that there is a committee working on possibly virtual graduations, summer, what would summer look like? And there's a lot of ifs, right? And I surely will not speak for the mayor or the governor. We all want this behind us. We don't want any more lives to be lost. And just like everyone who is listening, everybody wants this to go away. The sooner the better. But we have to take precaution. We have to wait till the authorities share when that is. But Central does have different committees that are exploring all kinds of options. And I know that this is very difficult for our graduating seniors and families.
Don't forget the politicians. We have all the proclamations piling up in our office.
That's true. That's true. I didn't even think about that. You're right.
Okay, two serious questions, and they relate to IEPs. One was asked anonymously, and then I'm going to ask the participant who goes by the name LG Stylo 4 to ask the second question. So the first IEP question is from someone who wanted to remain anonymous. I am worried because my son's IEP services that happen to school do not happen at our home. And then if LG, if we could bring LG in, and LG, you there? LG? I hear you.
Hi,
LG.
I just wanted to know if for the kids that have IEPs, if they're going to have the virtual learning over the summer.
Thank you. Good question. And I'm going to ask our resident special education teacher, Mr. Laurie, to take a first response to that.
There we go. As far as IEP learning, we're going to mirror exactly what we do in the classroom with what we do on the online classroom. If you have an individual student who, as far as the learning process with the special ed teacher, is not receiving services, please, those specific classroom services, please communicate that right away. If it's other services, as far as speech, if they could answer that question so we have a better idea of how to answer that, because those are two sort of different things. As far as the summer goes, there are students who obviously have 12-month programs. I have not heard yet what the city is planning on doing with that. As far as IEP students who have a 10-month program, we have not heard yet either what we would be doing with that. If any of the superintendents have heard, they probably could speak to that better than I can.
So,
Tiffany? I saw you unmuted, Tiffany, that's all.
Oh, I was just going to say, in terms of your child receiving services, I would say definitely speak to your child's classroom teacher. Also, please speak to the principal, because again, we are in remote learning, but it's still learning and you're still receiving your services. I have 7 speech teachers, OT, PT, almost every kind of service that that a child would get. And they're still receiving those services. They're just working in orchestration with the classroom teachers to ensure particular times where they're working with the service providers. So again, if the service providers have not reached out, definitely talk to the classroom teacher, school administration, but make sure that your children are receiving those services.
and I would definitely concur with what was stated thus far. And adding to that, going back to what Executive Superintendent Sardui may mention about for learning plans. So every single student that has an IEP also has a learning plan, a remote learning plan that is being implemented by classroom teachers right now. And that learning plan is a reflection of what was in the student's IEP that teachers are focusing in on. With regards to the services at home and providing services at home, I have seen situations where one of the clinicians may be providing a one-on-one service for a student with IEP remotely and or even in groups. We've had several of our students who have received adaptive devices that allow them to use the adaptive devices at home, and then they receive their services alongside the use of the adaptive devices in a remote fashion. So it's occurring. If there are specifics as to what the caller is asking about, then it would be great to better understand that. But with regards to ensuring that students with IEPs are still getting their services, I want to say that there absolutely are. Legally, there's no option. You definitely have to still administer the services for students with IEPs. It's just in a remote fashioned and garnered by that academic learning plan that each of our students have.
May I add on to that?
Please.
Well, in my particular building, I meet with different constituents in team meetings all the time. And I just met, on Friday, I met with my OT PT team. Yesterday, I met with my speech team, and we're talking through what's going well, and while they're trying to provide these services, some of the struggles, and we're working through the hard parts together. Because again, in terms of scheduling the services that they're giving. So again, please know for the person who asked the question, yes, your child is supposed to be receiving those services, and it's all about effective communication. Reach out, ask the questions. If you don't get the question, if you don't get the answer, escalate the question. If the school isn't giving the question, isn't answering the question, escalate it to your district personnel, but you will get what your child is supposed to have legally. So just stay persistent.
So let me combine a couple of anonymous questions, and it has to do with both the kind of the macro, which is how do we know how far, if at all, our kids are developing, what they're learning, whether these remote learning techniques are successful, and then as a practical matter, decisions have to be made about whether Timmy has made the grade, so he can go from 8th grade to 9th grade, or can graduate high school. So what is in place? What type of assessment is going to be done for students, I guess, at the end of this virtual school year to see where they are, how far they might have fallen behind compared to where they ought to have been, and how do you make judgments about whether someone has done the work and is where they need to be to graduate and move on to the next grade?
So can I open this conversation, and then I'm going to defer to my leadership to kind of like bring me home with this one. So one thing that my superintendent has been having us think about is, how have the children been on track towards meeting grade level standards from September to March 17th, or whenever the last day they were actually in the building? And that is very valuable data. So again, we don't just want to make decisions on promotion based on the last 3 months. We have to look at the year in its entirety. So you have to begin to say, was Tiffany on track to meet grade level standards and or her IEP goals from September to March? And then thinking about, with a very flexible growth mindset and a systematic approach to the assessments that we'll be using the last third of the year. But we cannot negate all of the teaching and learning that happened and the data that was used to make decisions for the first report card, to make decisions for the second report card. And there's different report card systems. I think we've had 2 thus far. So again, we want parents to remember that they've been in school the majority of the year, and we want to, you would know through your ongoing conversations with teachers, with service providers, with administrators, was your child on track towards meeting grade level standards and or their goals? So I want us to kind of hold on to that as we're making decisions about kiddos moving forward. But again, in terms of future policies, I'm going to defer to my leadership on that one.
So I just want to add to what you said, Principal Neely, because on a K to 8 level, we've had 3/4 of the year in school. We've had several assessments, formal, informal, summative, diagnostic, and we have that data. And so the children who are on grade level and above, the parents have been notified. For those children who are struggling through the year, the families have been notified. And I'm going to defer to my colleague, Andre, when it comes to high school. But so we can't, again, like Principal Neely said, we're going to be in this remote world a quarter of the year. And so what does that look like in comparison to a whole year? And then for high schools, Dr. Spencer, if you want to add?
Yes, and so it's really across the whole spectrum from K through high school. going back to what both you and Principal Neely were speaking about, as far as looking at where were students' performance levels from September up to the March period at which we exited schools, and using the time that we're engaging in remote learning as an opportunity to add to the quality of work that you have gained. So this is not an opportunity to say over the past month and a half or however long we've been in remote learning status, what have you learned during that period of time? Is really looking at how has this time contributed to what you have been learning from September up to the point that you started into the remote learning aspect, so that it becomes more, not a takeaway in that particular sense. And the same thing exists with our high school students. For the most part, high school students were in the second semester in high school, so they were in the midst of taking their particular accredited courses. But again, there's content that perhaps they may have missed. It is not saying that they're excluding that content. They're now just getting that content in a remote manner. But they had learned portions of that content from January through March. And that cannot be dismissed, or it cannot be in absence of whatever new learning that is coming forth. So see it as a continuation or an addition, rather than this is something that you're just learning from the time period that we've been in remote learning, because it's not that. It's really an add-on to what has been happening from September.
Thank you. I don't know if it was clear, but what is the regions have been canceled, right?
Yes.
What's the story with AP tests for kids who are in AP classes?
Yes. So for AP exams will still be provided, but they will be online. There will be portions of the AP exam that will not be administered because it cannot be administered via online. And so the College Board folks have already addressed and taken care of all of that aspect. But yes, AP exams will still be administered, just online.
Okay. And with just a couple more questions, we'll wrap up. The for students who are applying to college, how can they get assistance that they'd normally get from a college advisor or guidance counselor, or however each school sets it up? What should they do?
So what they are doing is continuing their conversations with their college counselors. So college counselors are still interacting with our graduating seniors, rather than having one-on-one conversations about specific colleges or universities that students are looking at, or they're having a group conversation as they would have had during brick and mortar time. In addition to that, college counselors are thoroughly reviewing transcripts right now, because we know that students have already submitted their transcripts for the colleges and universities that they're interested in, but they have to submit a final transcript to show that they have a completion of high school. And the college counselors are working them through that as well. Because this situation is a pandemic that's impacting everybody across our country, colleges and universities are really understanding of what high schools are actually having to deal with, because they too are dealing with the exact same thing. So a lot of those conversations with college counselors are underway, as far as perhaps even prolonging the length of time at which some of these documents are due to the colleges and universities, and they're waiving some of their deadlines in that sense. But it's depending upon the college that the student is interested in. So I would say definitely engage with your high school college counselor, and speak with your high school graduating senior around their conversations with their college counselors, and whatever other materials that they will have to submit or get ready to submit for their college admission in the fall.
Got it. Last question. Two people actually wanted some qualification on something that was brought up before. This one is from Lisa. But her mic isn't working. So just following up on an earlier question posed by someone else, how does the child receive OT and PT remotely? Those are usually hands-on services utilizing special tools and settings. Has anyone come up with a good virtual OT PT program that you're aware of?
So if Mr. Laurie, do you want to share what you guys are doing around OT, PT? I know some schools are engaging with the occupational therapists via remote. So the occupational therapist is articulating a particular move for a student to make, and then the parent is supporting and assisting in the movement of that particular response back to what's being seen on the screen. But I'm not certain if specific actions are being taken at a specific site. So it would be interesting to hear if there's a specific action that's taken at a specific site.
So special education obviously is a very broad area to talk about. Unfortunately, most of my work is classroom, setting up IEPs, not doing that hands-on work. I think it might not be a bad idea to try to have a OT-PT person on one of your education panels. But I can say this, just as an IEP teacher, if your child is not receiving those services, you contact the classroom teacher who responds quickly, contact your principal, and make sure you get in touch with them. I know the PTs at my school are working overtime. They actually, in my opinion, might have the most difficult job, because while my work that I put up is I'm expecting them to be on a certain time to do it, it's not appointment. Some of my students I post my work for tomorrow at 9 o'clock at night, the night before. Some of them do it at 10:30 at night, because that's just when they're going to have opportunities to get on their computer. Some of them do it at the beginning of the day, end of the day. To do PT and OT virtually, you're going to it's appointment teaching. And to do that with the student is difficult, because we have tech issues, we have got time constraint issues. So I really feel for the OT, PT workers. They're doing everything they can to get in contact and meet the standards of those IEPs. But just the one thing you got to take away as a parent, make sure you get in contact with someone to let them know, and those OTs and PTs will meet those IEPs.
Yes, and I would also add to that as you're reaching out and speaking with the principal of your school, keeping in mind that we are sending out or mailing out any devices that coincide with the OT-PT services. So this will not be an absence of the device that the student would ordinarily have in school, within reason, of course, in that particular case. But keep in mind that that's an opportunity for parents and families, if they're in need of specific devices, to use when the occupational therapist or the physical therapist is working with the student remotely, that they can reach out to the school so that that device can be delivered to the home.
So if they need the device, they can reach out to the school and get the device that way.
Yes, they'll reach out to the school, and for the most part, and I'll speak to what we have done in Queens South, reaching out to the school reaches out to our borough citywide office, who will connect with our director for special education, who will handle the delivery of the device back to the home.
Got it. Terrific. All right. You have all been great sports. We went a couple of minutes over, but I want to thank you, Mabel Muniz Sardoui, Executive Superintendent of Queens North, Dr. Andre Spencer, Executive Superintendent of Queens South, Principal Tiffany Davis Neely of PS 165, the Edith K. Bergstrom School, and Robert Laurie, a teacher at IS 250 RFK Middle School and a UFT delegate. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for all the work that you do every day, but particularly during the coronavirus crisis. I love talking to teachers and principals and educators, because you're always so passionate about what you do. I hope that you found the questions this afternoon informative, and I certainly learned some things. And I want to thank all of you who participated for doing so. Our next town hall will be on Friday, at 2 p.m. It will focus on issues affecting senior citizens. So please let everyone know, and we'll of course have an excellent panel on Friday, just as we had today. You please remember, you can reach out to my office. Sam, if you could put up the contact information from my office as we close out. You can call us at 718-217-4969. You can email us at rlandsman@councilnyc.gov. You can reach us on Twitter at Rory Landsman, or you can reach us on Facebook. Thank you everyone for participating this afternoon, especially our panelists. Everyone stay safe, and we'll see you hopefully on the other side of this thing. Bye-bye, everyone.
Nice meeting everyone. Thank you.
Have a great day.